Welcome to The Green Rush, a podcast about the intersection of cannabis, the capital markets, and culture. On a weekly basis, hosts Ann Donahoe and Louis Goldberg of KCSA Strategic Communications speak with the business leaders, financial experts, cultural icons, legislators, and generally interesting people moving the cannabis industry forward. This week, Louis and Ann are speaking with Christina DeGiovanni, founder and publisher of Emerald Magazine and the Emerald Media Group. Thrust into the cannabis industry while in college, Christina launched her cannabis lifestyle magazine from the Emerald Triangle in 2012, and since then has expanded her media empire across the country, reaching thousands of readers from the Valley in Los Angeles to the streets of New York. Her story, her role, and her vision for the industry are unique. So don't sit back, lean forward. Now on to our conversation with Christina DeGiovanni, CEO of the Emerald Media Group.
Hi, Louis.
Oh, and it's been so long.
I know. How are you?
I'm good. I was at my friend's house last night, and we were watching the NBA draft, and we're recording this on June 21st. And out of the blue, one of the guys there turns around and he shows me his phone, and he goes, "Do you see this?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's your phone." He goes, No. And he clicks on the little podcast button, and the very first podcast on the amongst all the ones that he listened to was our podcast.
Aww.
And he was like totally gushing over it, which was really cool. And he's like talking about our dynamic between the two of us. And I said, "Yeah, well, we've been working together for 15 years, and we have developed a really good friendship." And he's like, "You don't ever do it by yourself, do you?" Because I've done a couple by myself, but I much prefer to record these with you. They're always more fun when it's you and me together.
No offense to Nick or any of the other substitutes, but thank you.
Yes, no offense to any of the other, including Jeffrey and Todd and Nick and whomever else.
I'm the favorite.
Phil. You are the I'm going to go harken all the way back. You're my little jar of joy.
Oh, jeez. That's an Easter egg for our first 4 people who ever listened.
Yeah. So New York shit the bed, just like New Jersey.
Yeah, it did. I'm sorry. Condolences.
Don't condole me. I mean, or don't give me the condolences.
Is that a word?
Yes, it is now. It's really the people in the state who, it is so frustrating to see our legislators, whether they be in New Jersey or New York or anywhere, kick the can down the road and say, "You know what? We're just going to let the voters decide." We did decide. We decided to send you to Albany or you to Trenton to get this stuff done, and you just didn't. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, but I also don't think it's like a surprise to anybody. I don't know. I think that it's this community is so used to 2 steps forward and 5 steps back.
Well, when we sat back in December or last November when we were in Vegas and did the All-Star panel that Shay put together, one of the things that Chris Lotlicker and Chris Crane talked about was the incrementalism of the movement. That one of the things that has made cannabis so much more successful than the environmental movement is we have been willing to take small steps. But I think we're at the point where we need to be insisting on bolder steps, right? Incrementalism is important, but isn't it time for some of these people to stand up and say, "We just got to get this shit done"?
Yeah.
It's really frustrating.
I mean, I also think it has to do with there's just such uncertainty politically on everything now. It feels, don't you feel that? Like everything is just more politicized. Everything is more, anti-compromise. It's my way or the highway. I don't know. I just feel like it's way more volatile.
but
and this is getting kind of.
But
caught
cannabis
up in
polls so high.
I know, and people I think are just chicken, and that sucks.
Yes, so I think we should create a new hashtag when it comes to cannabis legislators. It's hashtag chicken shit. Because these guys are just chicken shits. It's just frustrating. And I understood what happened in New Jersey. It was about social equity, and it was about social justice and expungement. And they're right. They are not wrong about this. But to not be able to communicate effectively, whether it's the media who has done especially the mainstream media, who still, for the most part, does a piss poor job reporting on the industry, to Governor Murphy or Governor Cuomo. And I give Governor Cuomo a lot of credit because he said last week that if the legislators in Albany can't get this done, that they should be primaried. Let's see if he actually stands up for that. But, he's right. It's time for these people who represent the will of the people to actually do what the will of the people want. It's not annoying. It's beyond disappointing. It just angers me.
Louis Goldberg, 2020 people.
No, I'm never running for office.
You could never run for office.
I don't want to run for office. You know what? Because I would be the anti-Donald Trump in every way other than the fact that I would have no filter. I would just literally say what I think. And what I think is literally, if you look at a picture of Donald Trump and then you take it 180 degrees, I've got much better and real hair than he does. I'm
you
not
do have
a
good
blimp.
Hair.
Oh, thank you. And I am a legit progressive. And I have core values. But beyond that, I'm exactly like Donald Trump.
I want to just cut that, splice that up, and make that my ringtone for when you call me.
Other than
Shay,
that, I'm exactly like Donald Trump. Oh my God, that's awesome. So speaking of the media, today we are going to be speaking with Christina DeGiovanni, who is the founder of Emerald Media. She's a fascinating person, and I can't wait to get into the conversation with her. Her stories are great. And she's really she has bled for this industry. So I know you don't know her, but you're going to get a chance to see what a cool woman she is. She's about to walk into my office.
I'm excited.
Awesome. So with that, why don't we turn it over and start our conversation with Christina DeGiovanni, founder of Emerald Media. So Christina.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Before we get into what Emerald Media is and what you're doing, let's talk about weed for a minute.
Cannabis?
Cannabis,
Ooh.
weed, marijuana, pot. It's funny because you corrected me and historically, for as long as we've been doing this podcast, we've really been focused on using the word cannabis. But it's marijuana and it's weed,
I think, and also, in any sort of bill, it's referred to as marijuana.
Yeah.
So, we have two terms. A lot of people in the community are trying to shift towards cannabis because of marijuana's racial history.
Yeah.
And then, there's a fair amount of people that are, stuck on marijuana, which,
like Joe Biden, who still doesn't get it.
Old Joe,
Papa Joe. But how did you get involved in the industry in general? Like, what's your origin story?
Well, it's funny. I actually was raised in Austin, Texas, and the quality of cannabis down there. I was thinking about this on the way over.
That was swag.
Swag. Okay, so I was thinking about this on the way over. Whatever happened to the days of dank or dro versus swag? Because when I was growing up, it was either dank or it was swag. And there was a clear difference between the two. And so
I've never heard that before.
Well, I mean, at least in my circle of friends, because back then we weren't as
well, dank got you high and swag got you pissed.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we didn't have GSC and GG4 and, Sherbert and all these fancy boutique strains. It was either good or bad.
Right. And it wasn't even indica or sativa. You didn't know what the hell you were getting.
Exactly.
You got what you got and you didn't get upset, right?
Exactly. Potluck surprise. So I got caught multiple times by my parents, and after a while, they were like, pot leads to heroin. They were that extreme, and I was sent to an all-girls boarding school in New Jersey.
Where I'm sure there's no drugs there.
I mean, and so that's really where my journey began. I remember my dad yelling, like he raided my room when I was at.
Did he have a warrant?
He was good. He knew every spot. He raided my room when I was at church on Wednesday. And
Wait. You were at church on a Wednesday?
Catechism classes.
Oh, okay.
CCD. And so I was at church and I come home and the device I had used the device I had created to smoke was shredded and destroyed on my bed. And I remember my dad being like, it was very clever. I had a bottle of water and I cut a hole and I took the screen out from under the sink and I pushed it in there and it was great. And, you'd put the weed in there and you'd smoke it and he found it. He destroyed it. He did give me props on being so clever. But so that's where it began. It started in Texas, went to boarding school after that. And then for college, I still like smoking cannabis. I didn't really smoke a lot of cannabis at boarding
You didn't
school.
smoke cannabis in college. You were smoking weed.
I was smoking weed back then. But I knew I had missed out on a lot.
Where did you go to school?
I went for boarding school or for college?
Yes.
Okay, so I went to Purnell, which is an all-girls school in New Jersey, and then I went to Humboldt State University for college, and I found Humboldt State on High Times website. I went when I was a junior. When I was a junior in boarding school, I had dreadlocks. I was into it.
Hold on, now let me. You don't have any clue as to what she looks like, but young white woman, long blonde hair. Very skinny. So the concept of you with like ratty dreadlocks.
Oh yeah. I had the John Lennon glasses. I got my clothing off like hippie.com. I was so into it. That was when I was about 17. So I went to Google. I was applying for colleges. I typed in hippie colleges.
Nice.
And High Times had a list of the top 10 colleges in America that were the most liberal. And number 1 was Humboldt State University. And they had a description under every college. And all it said for Humboldt was, dude, it's fucking Humboldt. And so I was like, I'm in. And so I looked it up and I applied and I got in. And that was in Northern California in the Emerald Triangle. And once you're there, you are in the industry, whether you realize it or not, because all the billboards, all the advertisements on the radio station, they're all about garden centers and soil and trucks and generators and all of it. So that's how the community, after the logging industry went out, stayed afloat. So not the only thing. Tourism is big out there because it's in the redwood forest, but cannabis is historically the community's heart and soul, and I loved it. It was great. It was a great place to go to college. I was there for almost 10 years. In my last semester of college, my last year of college, I was dating a cultivator, and in my last semester we got raided like so many other people in Humboldt County and Mendocino and Trinity County. It really is the power of numbers. And if you're in the game long enough, eventually you're going to get popped. And maybe not, but I did. So my ex was actually caught on an Amtrak train bringing bulk currency back into the state of California.
Bulk as in how much?
I think it was like 72 or 73,000.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's on an Amtrak train. He's profiled. The law enforcement said, we're from the Reno Drug Task Force. This train is known, as being a trafficking corridor. I'd like to search your bags. And he said no. And they did anyways. And they found his cash. And they took his cell phone and they took his money and they called law enforcement in Humboldt County because they looked at his driver's license and they saw his address and they knew Arcata. And so the Humboldt County Drug Task Force came to our house, and I was in my last semester. I think I was 21. I think it was 21, maybe 22 years old at the time. And I get this banging cop knock at my door at like 8 a.m. Notorious. I jump out of bed, and the whole drug task forces on the front lawn, and
they have the dogs, the whole 9 yards.
They didn't have the dogs, but they had their guns and they had their bulletproof vests strapped on. And my poor landlords lived right next door. They were an elderly couple. They were so scared. I'll never forget the look on their face. And they were defending us. They were like, they're not growing. We do a walkthrough every so often. Like, we live next door. We have the electric bill in our name. They're not growing. And law enforcement was like, nope, we smell fresh growing cannabis and that's our right of entry and we're coming in. So they raided my home. I was detained for about 5 hours before the judge even signed the warrant. But they had already raided everything except the attic, which is what really came into play later. When the judge did sign the warrant, they went straight into the attic and they found more bulk currency. I'd say maybe around like 50,000. And so, but we weren't growing, which is what they said. We did have cannabis at the house, but under our 215 medical licenses, that was actually covered.
What year was this?
This was 2012. This was like January 28th, 2012.
Okay.
And so really, I got arrested. I had a couple firearms. There were a couple firearms in the house. I mean, I was raised in Texas. I have guns. My ex is from Missouri. He had guns. So that, and then we had bulk currency. And then we had a 3-bedroom house, and one of the bedrooms had a bag of trim in it from like manicuring a plant. And I got arrested under harboring a room for drug manufacturing from that bag. So they really tried to slap whatever they could on me. I go to jail. I call my dad. I'm bailed out in 3 hours.
How did your dad react?
He was married to a paralegal at the time. And so he was like, don't say anything. Like,
no. I don't mean about that. But, he busted you and sent you off to boarding school for having like a homemade pipe. And now you got busted for having $120,000 from, then illicit drug sales.
My dad is a smart guy. He knows what's up. I went to Humboldt County for college. He knows that, cannabis has always been, a part of my, history, I guess. And so he certainly wasn't mad at me. He was upset at the situation. He was more mad at my ex than anything. Because in reality, I was just sleeping at home. I actually didn't do, and none of anything that occurred to me was mine. I know people say like, that's not mine, but really wasn't mine. I mean,
that really isn't mine.
It really wasn't mine. But I mean, law enforcement, they went into my wallet, they took my debit card, they drained my entire bank account, they seized
That's not legal.
They can drain your account?
Absolutely. They seized everything.
But that's local law enforcement, not DEA, right?
That's the drug task force. So they are local. They are funded locally by their sheriff's department.
They're not allowed to do that.
Well, they did that. And Wells Fargo, any bank, I guess, they just, sent me a letter and they're like, hey, we suggest you get an attorney because they came in.
And then they opened up 5 more accounts for you without you knowing it.
Right, exactly. So long story short, basically, I decided while sitting in jail, the pen is mightier than the sword, and earning a degree in journalism, I was going to put that degree to use. And so I created a paper magazine called The Emerald. And, originally my attorney was very nervous. He was like, what are you going to do? You have an open case. Please don't be stupid. And so I did a traditional lifestyles magazine initially to really encompass all that the Emerald Triangle was, much more than cannabis. And then 9 months to a year later, my case was finally over. I got all of my firearms returned to me. I got all my charges dropped. I got all my money back that was seized from my bank account. And my ex, he had to pay a possession of marijuana fine of $100. He had to do 100 hours or so of community service, and he had to forfeit all of his money.
He had to forfeit all that money, so they basically seized it.
They just want the money. That's it. It's a business as well. I mean, that's what people should, I think some of it, law enforcement, the Humboldt County Drug Task Force was so profitable from all their busts that they became self-funded. And so I don't know where they currently stand with legalization, but that's at least was like word on the street back then. So yeah, that's how it went down. He forfeited all of his money. We got all of our charges dropped. I got all the firearms returned. And I had the magazine at that point as a sort of therapy. to kind of recover. The pen is mightier than the sword. I eventually, when I rebranded Heavy into Cannabis, I told my story and I invited readers to tell me their stories because I knew I wasn't the only one out there that had experienced this. And sure enough, people started writing in, and I started to publish all of their bad cop stories. And if it bleeds, it reads. And, it gained traction. People, we started to pick up and get a reputation for ourselves. And then eventually, a couple years in, my mother had lung cancer. A lot of people in the industry have cancer. Thank you. And so, we started looking into RSO, which is this thick cannabis oil that people use for cancer. I think Ricky Lake just came out with Weed the People, or she didn't just come out with it.
No, we featured her in DC at our event then, and showed.
She's been on the pod before.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's an amazing film.
It's great. And, ever since my mother's cancer, and she's fine now, she goes for regular checkups, but I started making RSO. And so I would only do it when someone would put an order in, but I think that stuff is great. I think it needs to be explored more. But so I really rebranded the Emerald into, kind of a cannabis for the modern consumer. And really just started to work towards making, a perception of cannabis that was positive and household friendly. And it wasn't really, the stoner, hashy, dabby, tits and ass that we all know of historically.
Look, you're talking High Times, there's nothing wrong with High Times.
No,
they're a client of ours, so we love High Times.
No, it's perfect. And they certainly do reach that audience, but that audience isn't reflective of who is truly in the middle of cannabis. It's men and women of all ages. It's seniors. 12% of our readers are seniors, and they're coming to us for easy to understand, easy to digest information on this emerging industry, and they need to start at square one. And we don't expect our readers to understand what, butane hash oil is, and we probably
avoid it.
I mean, and so, we really just approach cannabis in that respect and just start from the ground up and really educate people. And since we're from Humboldt and from the Emerald Triangle, we know a lot about cultivation from seed to sale. We know about CBD. We know about hemp CBD and cannabis CBD and the difference there, and THC and why that's important when you have CBD and all the good things that come with this industry. So.
Christina, you mentioned that you had started, you had your degree in journalism and you started this almost as a passion project, like therapy and wanting to, kind of reach out and hear other stories. Did you, what was the moment that you thought this is going to be my career? Like I'm taking what sounds like a smaller publication and, kind of off to the side. When did you decide like, hey, I can really make a go at this and create a whole career out of it?
It's funny because I almost never thought that it was going to, develop into what it has today. So every day, every year has just been such a joy for me because it's my child, it's my baby, and I absolutely love it. And I would do anything for it. I guess I didn't really realize that it had the potential until High Times approached me last year at an event asking me if I wanted to be acquired by them. And they asked Edibles Magazine, who's based out of Los Angeles, and I've got a great relationship with her. She's another female publisher. And together we're stronger in numbers. And so they approached her as well. And she had that conversation with them. I didn't have that conversation because frankly, I'm not looking to be acquired. I'm looking to grow and to be that pillar in this industry. And I think that, being opposite of High Times does give us a leg up.
So can you describe the content a little bit? I mean,
yes.
I know what it is, but
sure,
talk about what's in the actual magazine.
We do a lot of profile reviews. We do a lot of feature stories on entrepreneurs in the industry. We do a lot of product reviews. We're trying to show people what the industry is today. So we work with a lot of brands that, cater to men and women probably between the ages of 30 to 50. Whether it's anything from companies that do, breast massage oil to men that do, libido enhancers. I mean, we have featured all kinds of companies
Wait, beyond just using cannabis as a libido enhancer generally, there is specific product that are libido enhancers?
Absolutely. We have a monthly gift guide and we feature 5 or 6 pages of just products, and it's amazing what's coming out on the market. I mean, we work with a lot of publicists as well, and there's everything from toothpicks to,
Wait. There's
I've heard that too, and I was like, how are that's yes. I was like, how much can you really get in a coated toothpick?
Exactly.
Really?
I mean, everything. It's amazing.
The thing that you got? Like you were like, no way, this is gonna, and you're like, oh, this is awesome.
I mean, I remember one time popcorn, which was like, a cannabis popcorn, came around my desk, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this might taste gross because sometimes cannabis doesn't taste so great if it's not.
No, it tastes like the plant.
It tastes green. That's how I like it. It tastes green. But I mean, the branding was comical. The product was actually delicious. It was effective. And
how much did you have to eat to get high?
I think I had like 2 handfuls, and I was like, put it down, and then you come back, and sometimes when you eat edibles, it takes a while to kick in. Then you realize it, and you're like, whoa, that's so high. Like, how am I gonna get home? I can't drive. But that brand actually, I don't know, I still remember them to this day. Then there's one product which I thought was great branding, and it smelled great, but I don't have a beard, and it was called Beard of God.
I want that. You got to give it to me.
It was called Beard of God, and I remember, we put it in the gift guide, and
it's beer. It's infused beard oil.
Yeah.
Come on.
I know.
But
Anything.
your skin is not a good transdermal never works, especially your face is really thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
So
You can't say transdermal doesn't work. Lots of people use it.
well,
I
okay.
mean, Mary's
So
Medicinal has a great
Yeah.
all right. So if you're not putting it,
I know a lot of people using it actually.
transdermal works. I have not had great experiences with transdermal other than for CBD, but for THC, I have never used a transdermal product that has actually worked on me.
Well, you're special.
I feel like
In so many ways.
like salves are great. I don't know if you've tried like THC salve before.
Like for
Yeah, just all over. It's like just a general body lotion. I have one that's like a salve body lotion. I thought it could be a placebo, but it doesn't really matter.
doesn't matter if it placebo,
matter at all.
if it works, it works. So, but the cannabis industry has a tremendous amount of media companies, right? You are not alone there.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond High Times and Dope and
Mm-hmm.
Sensi and a bunch of others, there's you guys. So what makes you fundamentally different than everybody else?
Well, we are a female-oriented media company, and so women in weed. That's a big thing right now. This industry is, unfortunately, right now the number of women holding like high level positions has gone down over the last 2 years, but it's still an industry where women are on the rise. And so, we cater to not only the modern consumer, but the modern day woman. She's a boss in her own right. We are the big sister in the industry. We are the go-to resource for people that have the most innocent and basic questions to ask us. We're approachable. I think that with a lot of these other large media companies, how close are they actually to their readers? I mean, we are literally hands in the dirt. My writers up in the Emerald Triangle are right there from seed to sale. And so I think what makes the Emerald really unique is our origins, the fact that we are from the cannabis capital of the world, the fact that where we did start exports 70% of the United States cannabis. And so we know a thing or two about it. I think we're cutesy. I don't know what to say. We're chic. We're like the H&M of cannabis,
There you go.
We're the H&M of cannabis. We're accessible. I love Nordstrom's, but Nordstrom's is expensive. Not every modern woman can go to Nordstrom's because maybe she's got 2 kids, and maybe she's like trying to get through college. And so, we are that accessible company that makes cannabis available and really lets what the market looks like.
I'd like to go back a little bit. So where are you based now? Are you still in Humboldt?
So we are where I am, and that is Brooklyn.
So how going back to starting the magazine and the Murder Mountain stuff, and the experiences you've had in Humboldt, did you ever and being a woman in the industry, did you ever feel at risk, especially given your past history with law enforcement?
So my history with like what people have seen in like Murder Mountain and of that nature is that is out there, and it is scary, but you will find drugs and meth in any community. And I think that it's really, when I was my first outdoor grow scene was in Trinity County in a notorious place called Trinity Pines. And the land was very cheap.
And that's Murder Mountain.
Yeah. Is that in the show? We should tell and everyone Murder Mountain's a show.
Yeah, Murder Mountain is a show on Netflix, and that takes place in southern Humboldt County. I did grow about 3 hills over from that mountain, not in southern.
Just over there.
Yeah, not. It was more in the middle of Humboldt.
Okay.
And so, I mean, on that particular property, I felt safe because I knew the owner. He was a good friend, and we were near water should we ever needed to escape. But
did you have like a go boat ready?
It was like a stand-up paddleboard where you're gonna be standing like paddling really
more
fast.
Like an inner tube, and then we'll be like, see you at the end of the highway. Down yonder. But no, I mean, my first year growing outdoors, I was in Trinity County, and Trinity Pines was the neighborhood, and cheap land brings cheap neighbors, and there was a lot of meth out there. There was a lot of, I think the parcel I was on was only $10,000 an acre. It was 2 acres. Wow. So it was very attainable if you're growing cannabis. I mean, I think back then the price of the pound was like $2,500. So really, you needed like 10 pounds, and then you could buy yourself a parcel, and then you could grow your own cannabis. And that's kind of the way of thinking out there is, how many pounds do I need to, owner finance this property? Owner carrying is a big thing. And so that was a little scary. I did get a 30-06 at that point because I was a female out on the hill.
Sorry, I don't know what that is.
It's a rifle. It's a hunt.
Oh, got it. I'm from New Jersey.
All good.
That'll make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a 30-06 hunting rifle, and it was for, like bears or anything like that, but also, for protection, because I was alone out there on a hill, and I had 2 partners. They were a boyfriend and girlfriend, and they would frequently leave to go into town for the weekend. And, someone had to stay and watch the plants. And so that would be me. And yeah, I mean, those are crazy.
And this was after your ex who got you arrested?
No, this was actually the year before I met him.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, Murder Mountain, I mean, it's not truly reflective of Humboldt County and the true culture of it. It's just, a story, a situation that happened out there that, they were able to make a full documentary about. And it does happen out there. I mean, people do go missing. I mean, I've heard stories of trimmers being up on someone's hill for a month and then getting paid out in counterfeit, and then going to the bank to deposit, and they realize it's fake money. And by the time the police get up to that property, within, an hour, that grower is gone and out.
So, a lot of people have empathy for the illegal or, the illicit growers.
The black market growers?
Yeah, I don't like using the word black market because it's just as fraught as marijuana has a history. So we, it's the same way we say with cannabis, we say illicit.
You are the first person to educate me on that.
And it wasn't mansplaining. So
okay, no, it's not mansplaining. I'm learning. So.
Yes, but do you have empathy for the guys and the women who are still growing illegally, or
I certainly think that the system is designed to weed those people out. Unfortunately, if you can pay to play, you can stay in the game. And the average mom and pop grower can't afford a cultivation and a manufacturing or a distribution license. Those licenses are very expensive, and it's completely understandable that they can't afford it. I think I do have empathy for them. And, I want to see them survive. I want to see them succeed. And I don't want, the Walmart of cannabis to come through, because there will always be the Budweiser of bud. But but I mean, there needs to be the craft cannabis market as well, and it is important to know your farmer.
Has California done these people a disservice by making it so difficult, or because I thought they had changed the rules for?
They've changed it so many times.
So for an historic illicit grower, how hard is it for them to get a cultivation license?
So I know in Humboldt County, you have to have been living there for a certain amount of time in order to qualify, at least in the first round of license distribution. I want to say, well, I mean, then you have co-ops like True Humboldt, and I think their minimum was you had to be a cultivator for 10 years, to be in there. I think that was it. But, I certainly do feel for those cultivators, because they want to be legal. They want to get above ground, and it's as though the man keeps them down. So,
well, you named the magazine Emerald because you come from the Emerald Triangle, and now you're in Brooklyn. Explain, please.
Well, the Emerald Triangle is still where our roots run deep, and we are the cannabis cultivators of the United States, with 70% export.
Well, it's not we, baby. You're Brooklyn now. So, and that Brooklyn is not the epicenter of cannabis culture.
Right. Well, I'm not putting Brooklyn out there like I am the Emerald. Does Brooklyn have a cultivation scene? Not so much, but I think the people of Brooklyn would like to see what the cultivation looks like. And so we are the media source to bring that to them. So, we cover more of national content than just local content. We cover politics from all over. We cover politics from Humboldt and from New York. We've been doing a lot of New York coverage with their.
There's no shortage of news, right?
They're not so passage. And so, but our content is really topical and relevant to readers all over. Because of our product reviews, a lot of the products are CBD, so people can really obtain them anywhere that they live.
Right.
We do dispensary tours in certain states, so people can understand and see, what a dispensary looks like.
What do you mean you do dispensary tours? You take people on you take readers on a dispensary tour?
I send a writer on a dispensary tour to go feature the dispensary.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, just so people in California can see what Colorado's up to, and what people in Massachusetts can see what California is up to, and just really get a feel. And people travel to California all the time. Cannabis tourism will pick up in the Emerald Triangle, and we, are that resource guide for cannabis in the capital, America's grassland.
So we ask a lot of our entrepreneurs these questions, but can you talk about, as it pertains to the magazine, maybe not like, post-Humboldt grow mistakes, are there any mistakes you've made in your career as a publisher that you just thought would either kill your company, or what you did to overcome it, or you had sleepless nights over it, and what you learned from that?
Sure. I think that print is a very expensive vertical, and it's hard. It can be a hard one to sell. I think that cannabis, fortunately, has kind of revived print in a way. There's a lot of cannabis magazines out there, and there's something luxurious about magazines themselves. They're seen as an item that you take time with, and you put aside 10 or 15 minutes to go through a magazine. And so I'd say that as an entrepreneur coming out of college with not that many business courses under my belt, I think learning about how far, everything from, in my industry, it comes down to paper. Was that the most efficient paper type? What was the thickness? What was the weight? What's the distribution? It's all the logistics that come with print, because you have to find the right printer. You've got to get the look down right. You've got to get your courier set up.
So did you screw up?
Or I lunged too forward. I lunged forward too much. One time someone gave me business advice. He said, if you're not leaning forward, you're falling back. I believe that to a certain extent. However, if you lean forward too much, you will also fall over. And so I was lucky to have cannabis on my side. I was a trimmer. I was a manufacturer. I was involved in the industry. And so where advertising may have fallen short in the beginning years, I was able to make up with money that grew on trees. And so, when I first launched, I shouldn't have done, I forgot what I did. Thousands of magazines. I should have started low, go slow, and built up. But I was excited to get it out there, and I wanted to get it out there. And I had, my trim money behind me, which, used to be $200 a pound. Is very profitable. You could do like 3 pounds in a day. You were out there 5 days a week. You're making some good money.
It's $3,000 a week.
So
all cash.
Yeah. And that's kind of how we rolled for, I didn't really care about selling advertising for like the first 2 or 3 years because we were hill rich. And so
I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah, we were hill rich. And, my ex believed that we were doing something good, that we were actively combating bad law enforcement. And he was all the more happier to support me. He supported me financially for the first 2 years while I got it off the ground, and then after 2 years, it gained its own traction. People started calling us for advertising. That was kind of the real switch over.
Who was the first
advertiser?
That you were like, oh shit, I can't believe they actually want to advertise.
Yeah, I had.
Oh shit, I need a sales deck.
I had a restaurant in Humboldt County come to me with $500, and they were like, "We want to advertise in this magazine. Everyone is reading it." And I was like, "Really? Wow!" Like I was shocked. I was like, "Okay," And it's funny because I just, being in the journalism department at Humboldt State, you don't really have courses on the advertising department. And so, I was like, oh, okay. My overhead was low, but I would say that, I did print a lot in the beginning. I probably could have honed it down and then worked my way up. But like I said, I was hill rich and it almost was.
So what is your distribution now? Where can people find the magazine?
So we distribute primarily in Northern California. I have done Southern California, but it's kind of a rat race down there, and it's a shit show down there. The dispensaries, it's like they're open one day and then they're shut down the next day, and then they open up on the second floor. And so after I did that for like a year, and I was just like, where am I even distributing down here? I don't even know. LA is so crazy. So I pulled out of Southern California, and I'm in Sacramento, Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco, Sonoma County, Mendocino County, Humboldt County, Trinity County. Not so much Trinity County because it's a little farther east, but along the Northern California coastline. I do hit a couple spots out in Brooklyn because that's where I'm at. So naturally, I just put it around the neighborhood. And then we have hit select dispensary locations in Boston. So I do have a Google map on our website if people wanted to hone in. But
what we'll do is we'll put a link to the show notes because I know that there's a subscribe section on your website. So we'll make sure that we highlight that too.
Cool.
Have you thought of alternative distribution points? Because your magazine is a glossy, and if you haven't,
it's beautiful. Yeah.
Described of luxuriating with it. Have you ever thought of going into like nail salons or other and just putting them there?
Whole Foods Market. We hit. I like natural food stores. I think that really hits our demographic right there. Yeah, nail salons are good. The thing is about a nail salon is we are looking to put down a stack of 50 to 100. A nail salon needs like 2. So it's like, well, all right. And I've seen them there. I've seen them surface at nail salons, and I'm like, I didn't put this here. That's always.
How about like doctor's offices?
Doctor's offices are good. Dentist offices are good. Chiropractors are good because alternative health and wellness. So, and we're really trying to bring people outside of the industry into the industry by just educating them.
Spas and
spas are great. Some clothing stores have been good. I remember in Humboldt putting them at all the thrift stores. There's one thrift store in a town in like Fortuna that loved them, that just burned through them. So, those are good too. And they're free, and people love free. I think that's one thing with having a publication is that if you're going to sell it, it's, got to be spectacular. It's got to be spectacular. And not that the Emerald isn't spectacular, but it's free, and everybody loves free.
15, 20 minutes ago, you were talking about growth, right? Growth costs money. How are you raising money? What are you looking to do? Talk a little bit about what your plans are from a growth perspective.
Sure. So from a growth perspective, right now we are in the middle of just fleshing out multiple verticals. We're getting set up. We have a handful of podcasts behind us that we're about to launch in July, and we're setting up like a video news segment. I already do a news segment every Monday with the Jono Show, and so we're going to be doing our own VNR packages for the Emerald, getting out there to different events, VNR's video news release. So just doing, reporter packages and really just being a video news source for the industry. One that's relatable, one that's catchy, and one that's quick as well. So we're fleshing that out. We're also building a stock photography site. There really is a need for positive representation and imagery in this industry. And as people are coming into the industry, they're developing their businesses, they need that positivity. And so there's not a lot of options out there. There's stock photos out there, but everyone's using the same thing. So, and I actually, realized that when we had a banner made and someone walked by and they're like, oh, I've used this picture before. And I was like, what? So we have that coming. We do have a product line coming soon, which is a cosmetic line.
Nice.
So that is very exciting.
And you're raising capital?
And we're raising capital right now. And it's going very nicely. And we've got a shop in Williamsburg opening up. And,
like an Emerald branded storefront?
It's going to be where we do all of our recording, but we're also going to have our products there as well. And
how cool.
Yeah, no, we're really excited about that. We're really just growing into a full-fledged media company. And so just really being that go-to resource in the industry for newcomers. And since we've already been around for 7 years and we're from the cannabis capital, we're already positioned to succeed. So we've been doing well.
Are there moments that you call your dad and you say, see, I smoked pot and I built all this and you threw my shit away?
I mean, I do still, my dad, he definitely smoked weed back in the day. And so he was just, being a dad. My mom was like the crazy one about it. And so to this day, I still call her out sometimes. And she's like, what do you want me to say? Like, you're my daughter, and I'm just,
your response is, what I'd like you to say is pass that shit over to me.
She was more the paranoid smoker. I mean, I believe her when she said she smoked pot once, got paranoid, and never did it again. That sounds about right for her.
You've made mistakes. You've had some great successes. There are not, as you said, a lot of other women who are doing what you're doing. If you could give some advice to somebody looking to get into the cannabis industry now, what would it be?
It would be to make sure to be slow to the finish line almost, but not too slow. I think that people can produce a product overnight or a brand overnight and it's terrible. And if you have a terrible quality product, if your packaging is bad, if your branding is bad, I mean, go slow and do it right, because I see a lot of people desperate to just jump in and they just throw something out there, or it's just a burner or a B grade company. I mean, it will be wasted resources and wasted efforts. And I think that it's just so important to take your time and do it right, and to always be talking to people. You're doing market research as you have a conversation with someone. You listen to people that you speak to in this industry and just try to absorb as much information as you can and keep getting opinions. I still to this day ask, do you like this layout? Does this look good? Does this sound right? What do you think of this?
Does this look good on me?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like always never be afraid to ask for opinions, or for everyone has an opinion. We all know that. So people love giving that, but I think it's important to take your time and do it right than to just rush it and be there, because, this market is going to get oversaturated at some point. And so if you have a quality product, then that is really what's going to keep you alive in the end.
So for all intents and purposes, you grew up in this industry, you are OG, and now as a publisher and as an entrepreneur, and, we talked about some of the fundraising that you're doing. How do you feel about the suits coming in, to this industry that is so historically, gray market, and, I guess how do you reconcile that, or do you see yourself reconciling it, or is it just another day?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you asked that, because I was at this Capital Summit and I was texting my banker because every single person in there was a man wearing a navy blue suit.
Not me. I was not.
No, you were literally the only person not wearing. Like, what you was that day. And I even remarked on it. I was like, you look great. You look and my baker is so funny. He was like, and I bet their noses are held high up in the air right now. And I was like, oh my gosh. But it's actually like, for me personally, I take joy in the little things and I love people watching. And so I get a kick out of being in the middle of this. Now, like my thoughts on corporate America coming into cannabis, having these, the suits coming into cannabis. I think that, it's very hard to fundraise, and I think that you really have to align yourself with the right suit. And so, from my perspective, it's comical. I feel like I should have a video camera following me around the ups and the downs and the schmoozing. Last week I was at a cigar bar for 4 hours schmoozing, and it worked, but I still have a cough.
Probably had to burn your clothes too.
And how long did it take for you to wash your hair to get that smell out?
That's the third time I've schmoozed at a cigar bar, that's where deals are made in this city, And so, like, I don't know. Right? Is that where deals are made?
I don't know. I've never made a deal in a cigar bar, but that's okay.
There were some deals going down, but that's like comical to me. But then I hear, the industry's cries when they feel like corporate America is taking away their chance at having an opportunity in this industry. And, coming from California, I think there was about a 5-year period before corporations could get into the industry, which is great. Could have been a little longer, but, I think it's inevitable, unfortunately. And the best thing you can do, and like I said earlier, is you're stronger in numbers. I have a partnership with Edibles Magazine because she's a woman in weed, and we really appreciate what each other is doing. And High Times try to buy us both out, and or have that conversation, I should say. And so, align yourself with like-minded brands so that you are stronger in numbers. And that fear is real, and it's coming. But also, I think being a media company, cannabis is very California, but we are a media company, and the media really is in New York City. And so that's where we need to be to fulfill our mission for the industry and to bring, to bring it back home to the industry. And so, for me personally, like I said, I'm just kind of eating it all up. I've got, I say that, advertising is not my favorite thing, but I definitely have a salesy personality, and I can chalk it up, and I've never met a stranger. And so when it comes to the suits, I can take them on, no problem. Like, I can hang at cigar bars, I can drink whiskey on ice, and I can also
one big cube though, not lots of little ones.
Right. And, and I also get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I run 5 days a week. So, I can take it on. And, I just say for other people that are very anti, corporations, corporate money getting into this industry, partner up now, make friends, don't make enemies, be stronger in numbers.
So I have a question, and then we're going to go to our last question to be respectful of your time. But a lot of our clients and our guests who are in the industry who touch the plant kind of give a nod and a wink saying they want it to stay federally illegal for just a little longer so that they can continue to build out their business, so that, either that they're able to last on their own, or when they get bought out, their valuation is high enough. They don't want the federal government to deschedule tomorrow. They want it to stay like, let's go state by state. Let's take it slow. What impact would descheduling have on your business? Do you want it to flip tomorrow, or would you rather it remain a bit of a walled garden?
Well, I think that it's better for the people that it flips tomorrow. And having been arrested for this plant, you realize how ridiculous that is. And the fact that, my family had to come out of pocket with thousands of dollars just to get me out of jail. When you go through that experience, you don't ever want it to stay illegal. And so I have to side with the people. I think for me, there'd be plenty of news to cover. So from my business's standpoint, there will still be a need to educate people on what the market is. So I think from an Emerald Media standpoint, we would be just fine. And personally, I vote to legalize it because, I don't think cannabis should be a crime. I really think it should be explored, and nobody should go to jail for it. Nobody should certainly go to prison for it. Absolutely. On top of that. So.
This is another question that we ask all of our guests in our wrap up. The way we have it worded, Lewis, I'm going to flip it a little bit. Let's say this wasn't the issue of Emerald Magazine. What headline and what story would you like to see? What's your dream headline and your dream story? And what publication would it be in? And you can't choose Emerald.
I would like to see, I believe is this an industry magazine that I'm picking out?
It could be whatever you want.
It could be the Wall Street Journal. It could be
Oprah.
Oprah.
Maybe it'd be interesting to see a National Geographic story that went deep into the history in the Hindu or the Kush Mountains and really traced back the origins of cannabis. But I also think it would be
that would be cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be really awesome. I also think it'd be really interesting to do a scientific piece on why THC is necessary for CBD to be, truly medical and beneficial. I think that with this hemp hype on CBD, people don't actually understand that without THC, CBD can almost harm you in certain situations. It can make your tumor grow. And so you need that THC to kind of, in a sense, paralyze that tumor long enough for the CBD to help your body to naturally fight over it. That information just isn't out there enough, and there's not enough science.
Funny, I know a publisher who could actually, assign somebody to do that.
It needs we need research. We need more scientific research and data so that we aren't just, coming up with fake news, that we've got some background to it,
I know that we said that was our last question, but I have one more question.
Okay. Encore.
Almost all of the Democratic candidates, all 23 of the 23 dwarves out there, have come out in some way or another in favor of cannabis legalization. Do you think that your readers and that just cannabis consumers care enough about this issue to have their vote influenced in the Democratic primaries on where a candidate's position on this topic is? Joe Biden was a warrior against legalization for years, almost Jeff Sessions level warrior. So, will cannabis enthusiasts hold him accountable for that?
I don't know if many of my peers are going to vote for Joe Biden. I just don't know, so I think that those that know their history will certainly hold him, accountable for that. And I think, probably most people don't know. They only know what's on TV right in front of them, unfortunately. And so I think that a candidate's stance on cannabis will definitely, sway a voter one way or the other. I went to a political fundraiser this past week, and she lost me at pot. She said, "We're going to legalize pot." And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me, lady. You are this is your platform, and you just called it pot. You also basically just implied we're all I don't know, to say pot, it just felt like she's calling us stupid. I don't know. I got that. And it was again with the marijuana cannabis term, she kept calling it marijuana. And I feel like if you're true.
Who was it? Call her out.
Senator
Gillibrand?
Yeah. I mean, I got a very nice picture with her, which I'm still going to post on Instagram.
And she's great. But
she's a nice lady. But I mean, the thing is, it's if you're going to use cannabis to your advantage, you have to do your research and call it cannabis. I understand that marijuana is used in legislation, but be above that.
That was the event that Tahira was at, right? Did you get to meet Tahira?
I think she was too popular for me. She's from NJ Freeway.
Yeah.
I tried very hard, and I waited about 10 minutes, and then I had to go. So, but she looked like a lovely young lady, very popular. But anyways, I went there, and I mean, she just called it pot, she called it marijuana, and she talked about the social equity program, and I felt like it was just paraphrased to her. As someone, as a publisher that's working with these equity applicants, I see the struggle that they have to overcome. You have these people that have been oppressed for generations. Then you say, okay, you can move to the front of the line because, we unjustly, prosecuted you during the war on drugs. And then they're like, all right, well, thank you for giving me this dispensary license, but I don't have $1 million to put in this dispensary. So that's where the conflict is. Then you have someone come in.
I think if you've listened to any of these candidates, Cory Booker is the one who is far and away the most aligned with the cannabis industry.
Okay.
I mean, that's my experience with him, and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, but Cory is so far has been the best.
Yeah.
I don't know where Mayor Pete stands, and I'm a big Mayor Pete fan.
Mm-hmm. I mean, personally, she's not a Democrat, but Jill Stein, I love her. I mean,
she's also batshit crazy.
Well, all right. Now, from a Humboldt standpoint, she comes to the Humboldt County Cups. She talks to us. We've interviewed her in the magazine.
She's great, but she's literally like flat Earth crazy.
I wasn't aware of her views on that.
You're not serious, are you, Louis?
Maybe not with that specific, but if you look into some of her issues, I mean, it's flat Earth equivalent, like anti-vaxxers, shit like that. Like, yeah.
Well, she was a joy to interview, and I just maybe I'll run for the Green Party someday.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, that'd be cool.
All right. We're going to let you go. This was awesome. Thank you so much. And to our high net worth and institutional audience members, if you're interested in finding out about investing in Emerald Media, we will put an email in the show notes. You can also reach out to us directly. And full disclosure, we are partners with Christina. We represent her, and she's just awesome.
And they're just awesome as well. It's a good part.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Our thanks to Christina DeGiovanni, founder and CEO of Emerald Media Group. You can find them on theemeraldmagazine.com and hit the subscribe button on the upper right-hand corner. The magazine is absolutely beautiful. I promise you won't be disappointed. Check them out on Twitter at The Emerald News or on Instagram at The Emerald Magazine. As always, if you want to chat with us, you can find us on Twitter at @the_GreenRush or on Instagram at @thegreenrush_podcast. Or feel free to drop us an email at greenrush@kcsa.com. We love your feedback, and we're always looking for guest ideas, so drop us a line. And don't forget to subscribe to The Green Rush in your favorite podcatcher. That's one take, Shay. One